evening. I was excited to not do it like a regular teaching format and to have a little bit of an experience together. So we're going to ask you for permission to go a little deeper today. And I hope you say yes.
Yeah.
Good. We haven't asked you yet. You don't even know what you're in for. So the thing that I guess we'd like to say, welcome. Why are you here tonight and not somewhere else? You know, why come to a death workshop? Or that is still when we talk about, like, we had a lot of time to think about what should we cover? What's important about death and the afterlife? You know, what really is our ideas behind that. I know most of you study here or have had some studies, but without those, what do we think? What do we think of death and the afterlife? So we're just going to get you to tell us why you're here and what you think about those two things. Anyone want to actually, and this is the totem pole, so you get to hold this and say it. This is my dad. Yeah. You get to hold my dad, and or fifth of my dad. That's his ashes. We made sure we divided his ashes. I don't know. We divided it into 5 and left it in all different continents, so there'd be no chance of resurrection. 0 chance. So that's the fifth that lives in New York. There's a fifth that lives in Western Australia. There's another fifth that lives in England. There's a fifth in the bottom of the ocean. There's a fifth in Argentina.
Wow.
Yeah. So, wow.
So I came to this class because I love both of you, but also, for those of you who don't know me, I've had a lot of death in my family the past couple of years. In 2017 and 2018, 7 people that are very close to me died. And so through learning about everything I'm learning with Hector and this community here at Three Jewels, I've just felt a lot closer to death, and I'm interested to keep moving into that. And I'm just seeing death not as like a final loss, but as a portal to something else. Thank you for offering.
As a portal to something else. Okay. Well, hi, welcome. Take a spooky seat somewhere.
We're just starting.
We just started. We finished the creepy music. Cool. So what we did is we said hi. She said, I'm Sarah. I said, I'm Hector. And then we're passing over my dad's ashes to talk about why we're here, what we think about death and the afterlife. Really, what do we think? So who are you?
I'm Heather, and similar. I've experienced a lot of death in my family over the years, and some at a relatively early age, and some as recently as this summer. And I've always thought it was an interesting relationship that we have with death, and I think that culturally there's a better way to experience it, and a better way to experience grieving, and to experience less fear and more joy and beauty in it. And so I was curious to have a conversation about that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Hopefully we get there.
I like the part about less fear.
Yeah.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Safrida. I haven't experienced that much death in my life, and that feels really far away, but I know it might not be, and it's certain. So yeah, I guess I'm just curious. I'm also curious about the afterlife piece. We'll touch on it.
So this is like a leg?
It's a leg and a half, yeah. Unless it's his brain, unless it's his head. Yeah.
My name is Paul, and I came to support Hector Marcel.
Oh, cool.
I think of that as a simple shedding of your body, and as well as a shedding of your personality. So I don't think that travels along with you either. I think of consciousness as an ocean, and every being that's born just a little dip in the ocean, that's their consciousness. And when you die, your consciousness goes back into that ocean of whatever consciousness is, and mixes with all the other experiences that all of the beings have had. So when you take a new body, whatever that is, you might get a little bit of somebody's consciousness in your mix that you happen to get that time around. So I don't think it's anything to be feared. I think it's an experience like all other experiences that we have.
That's awesome. We're going to touch on the Tibetan Buddhist view of what happens when we reach consciousness. How it explores.
You're going to touch on that.
Yeah, we will together. Hopefully we get to touch
Just
it.
like
I'm Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
I agree with everything that you just said about my attitude towards death, and I've experienced a lot of death in friends and acquaintances, and a little bit in family, and lots of pets, and I guess I feel lucky in a way that I have had that experience so much at a young age, because I feel sorry for people who don't really experience it until they're older, and then it's this really destabilizing thing, because it is a destabilizing thing to grieve. It makes you feel very isolated from everybody else, even though everyone has to go through it. It's a very strange experience, but I think it's something that has really deepened my appreciation of life. Just having that awareness of death, and I also feel lucky that I'm not afraid of death, because I have a similar view of just life as consciousness, and we just leave this little droplet and go back into the ocean, become a droplet again. So it's something to be afraid of, and that's something that I definitely want to talk about with other people who want to talk about.
Opportunity.
I'm Rosie, and I'm Sarah's mom. And so that's a big reason why I'm here. I have experienced a lot of death in my family, also with a lot of close friends. Today's the 3rd anniversary of my nephew and his wife, and I'm not afraid of death. I think it is a transition. And I'm just interested to go further.
Cool.
Hello, Hector's dad.
It's number 1. He's yelling from the depths of the jar. Hey.
So,
Take a spot. We are down a little bit.
my name's Steven. I haven't experienced that much death in my life, not with so many people that were close to me, just one friend of mine that was really the hardest one. But what I'm really interested to learn tonight is the entire death process and what that looks like afterwards. So, thank you for teaching.
When you're shaking Dad, careful, because the top is very loose. Like if you just and he's very eager to get out of the bottle. Yeah, like,
Does he
can't wait to make a mess.
Does he grant wishes?
My name's Anya, and I never ever think about death, ever. I mean, I like the idea of thinking about it, and I just never get around to it. Honestly, so I have a pencil in.
That's so awesome.
I haven't. I'm one of those people who haven't really experienced a lot of death, and so that's why. I'm recently coming from a funeral. My grandfather just recently passed away, so that was an interesting, thing to behold and think about. But it also was his time, so it wasn't as shocking as some other experiences could be. So I guess I'm somewhat lucky and unlucky in that regard that I haven't had to experience it. But I like the idea of meditating on the ends also as a way to accentuate the present status of our means and where we're at, and sort of add that as a motivating piece to being alive. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. I'm here because I'm currently yogiing and there's two of us that are here now. And I also love learning from you guys. And I think I kind of go back and forth a lot between being afraid of death and just wondering about it. And I think for me, the worst part of the whole thing is the sadness that's associated with death more than actual death. And I think I struggle when I see other people struggling with it, and it really affects me. So I think I'm trying to really root and find what I really think about it, so I can figure out how to be better in those situations, internally and externally.
My name's Adam. I apologize for being late, but we're grateful to be here. What is the prompt?
You're just saying what brought you here tonight, and then also what comes up for you when you think about death and afterlife. Like, what are thoughts that pop in your mind or feelings you have?
Thank you. Finding out from my teacher, Rosanna, about the class tonight. She's saying we want to go.
Yeah.
And then I've been thinking a lot about death lately, and it just seems to be present with me in a way of putting a lot of things in perspective. Like, this is your only certainty. This is what you're thinking about dealing with, struggling with, fighting against, blah, 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 blah. What is that like in the face of the reality of you're here now and sometime you're gone? So, I'm like fascinated by it. I feel really, I'm just, felt like a blessing, this talk entirely.
Nice.
My name is Jonas. I'm grateful to be here. The teaching seemed very interesting, and I was very curious as to what you have to say about this. I have certain ideas and thoughts about what happens after we pass or drop our bodies, however you want to put it. Or Ramdas says, like taking off a tight shoe, death is just like moving the afterlife and just release. I want to grow more comfortable with the idea of dying so that I can have more of a solid, purposeful existence here in life. I didn't have anything better to do.
I mean, it's already going on, but this is where I want to be, so why would we do that?
I thought it was a big cool party, so.
Cool.
Nice.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel. I have been so terrified of death since as long as I can remember. So it's really interesting. Like, I remember being 4 or 3, but maybe 4. The concept of it has always frightened me. I think about it all the time. Not necessarily in a fearful way, but I do think about it all the time. And I haven't actually experienced anyone really die. I don't really know why I have this fixation or fascination. I do know that fear is a very powerful energy, and if I could transform that tonight and kind of empower myself to, as a practitioner, to utilize that in some way, would be really nice. And then, also studying the Tibetan Buddhist courses that we have here, we've actually touched a bit on certain practices and then what might happen or what might not happen. But I'm really interested to talk about it very plainly, not in the context of Buddhist cosmology, or I'm sure we'll talk about cause and effect, but just discuss it very plainly, and then think about and I've thought about, what is it like as the consciousness moves through the experience of not being able to breathe,
not being able to speak, certain things like that. So yeah, I'd like to discuss it in more clarity to prepare.
Very nice. What do you think, Sarah? If you were giving the talk?
Yeah. Well, I am here because I also am really afraid of death, but it's a reality. I wanted to come up with some way to face that for myself, and I know that I'm not alone in that. And then also because I have had death very close to me, and it's been something that popped up, and I was pretty much like forced to deal with it. And I have been lucky enough to have some really beautiful transformations there, where it didn't end up being the thing that was the end of me and the sadness and the fear, but it turned into something that is really, really beautiful. And like some of you said, it has informed my life in a really beautiful way. So I wanted to share that. I wanted to learn from you guys, and then also go deeper into this inevitable thing that is going to happen.
He always comes back. That's that. So, some of you may know, I lost my mum. Actually, that's not true. I didn't lose her. She was in the hospital. She died. It's not like, hey, I lost my mum. Where's my mum? Have you seen my mum? No, she died. She died in August, and I had the difficult fortune to be by her side for the weeks that it took from her to getting diagnosed with cancer, and within 90 days she breathed her last breath. And my relationship to death up until that point was a deep practice in Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. You think about death, you contemplate death, you consider it as a reality, a certainty. I studied it for 20 years in that context, cause and effect. And I felt infinitely prepared for my own death. I also had near-death experiences where that practice turned on for me, and I thought, I can handle this, I can die today. And no problem, no fear. But then to be by my mother's side and see a human being who you adore, love, and worship go through the forces of death, like our awareness in our life is like a river, but as it bottlenecks to death, things get very fast, accelerated. And what you thought you were, the river you thought you were, all of a sudden looks very different. Because when you put your pressure at the end of the hose, it sprays in all sorts of unpredictable directions. And that's what I witnessed with my mum. She was always very open, very positive, and she was afraid. She was afraid because she thought what she had as a grounding wasn't working. She thought she could face anything, and it wasn't the case. She was afraid. She felt in trouble. She was uncertain. And she, like the spray at the end of a hose, was all over the place right until the end. And that included moments of bliss and stunningness, and moments of deep patterns reoccurring from her entirety, the entirety of her life. So witnessing that, helping her, guiding her, and learning from her in that process, it was like the entire practice of 20 years in my heart got ripped out, and this raw part of me inside was new and fresh in relationship to death. So when Sarah asked me to join, I thought I'd talk about that, and I won't. That's it. That's the only part I'm going to talk about. But I want to share with you the best that I know from that process, from the speech of the Buddha, the practices, the high practices and the open practices, to give us tools to answer maybe some of our questions about what to do with this thing. Because when our rivers get bottlenecked, how will you act? And so hopefully we get to talk about that. Yeah. So I'm glad you all got to say that, those things. We're hoping to give you 3 things tonight if we can. Hopefully invite you to have a new take on death. think of death in a slightly different light. If it's got fear, or if you've got some reservation about it or some uncertainty, just open up the door a little bit and give you a new take. And also to ponder about what happens next, or does anything happen next? And if it does, what? And then, of course, I think, I know you said implications for this life, like it has implications. What we understand about the inevitableness of this experience has implications for how we live our lives. So we hope to share a little bit of that. We found this thing online which I thought we'd show you and see what you think about some Western views on death. See, is the
So Dad's gonna die first, and then Mum, and then Jake, and then me. Because I'm the youngest in Dad's family. But like I could either die tomorrow, or you could die tomorrow, but you never know.
Life and death is like a lottery. Some people live long, and some people live less.
Fate.
Fate, yeah. Yeah.
We are going to die. There's nothing that we can do to stop that happening. Like everybody has to go through the process of death.
I found out a week before she died that she'd had cancer for 10 years, but she kept it a secret.
Every time I saw him, he was a little bit more dead than he was the time before.
When I eventually was allowed to go home and see her, she was like super, super sick in bed. And died the next day. Just all different parts. Yeah, my body shut down, she couldn't breathe, and then when she just went cold and her hand went cold, then I just walked out.
It's a shape you understand, like the shape of their head, or when you're touching it, or the feeling of their hands, it's so cold.
It's just a shell. It doesn't matter anymore. Once the mind is left, there's no meaning to that body.
What if you die and you come out as another person, but you don't remember you dying or anything before that?
There was a theory that that's the case.
Like you come out as like a leopard or a lion.
Or crayfish.
No, I don't think once you die, that's it. There's no way it can like maybe you float around for a while, but then you disappear into nothing. In theory.
It's like sleeping so good, and you don't even know that you're enjoying it, but you're enjoying it. So it's got to be something like that.
When you go on, you've got become compost, as the friend said. That's it.
Part of me believes in like ghosts and haunting things, but I think it's probably a bit more complex than someone like coming and like moving the shit around.
I don't want to fucking die. When I'm 86, I'm 86 and I'm going to die. And I'll just turn into a ghost, move things around.
So I think all those views are not uncommon. Like people actually, if left to our own devices, what would we have come up with? And here, at least in this center, we get to talk about the Eastern view of that from the Tibetan Buddhist lineage. To say, well, what does the Tibetans throughout the ages think? But the premise of that is that there's a physical part of you and there's a mental part of you, and they both have continuity. The physical stuff is going to become other physical stuff. This is not my dad, I mean, it's my dad's ashes, but this is definitely not my dad. And just like this, the rest of him went to the ocean and became other stuff. The particles and the atoms, that became other physical stuff. And just like this, the philosophy is that the mental stuff also continues in a similar continuum, as what what was there in the mental part of that. That's at least the premise, the philosophy after years and decades of debating, millennia. So I want to show you a little bit about what the Eastern thinks about death. Yeah, the Eastern view. Sorry if the video is a little jumpy.
Describes how death, the consciousness, is suddenly separated from all the circumstances which made up daily life. Mind experiences its own liberation directly, as radiant, pure white light.
The white light is important for what you were asking, Steve, the presence.
Both life and death, according to the Bardo, are a continuous flow of uncertain transitions called bardos. In the bardos of death, if mind does not recognize its own nature, it becomes ever more solid until it enters a new form of life. O son of noble family, now is the time for you to seek a path. You are not alone in leaving this world. Everyone who has come before you has died. You can no longer stay here. Now you should think like this. Now I will abandon and cling to this body and to this world. I will go forward. I will abandon fear and terror. And I will recognize whatever appears as a projection of my own mind.
So what do you think of that? Open for comments, it's a workshop.
Yeah. I just wanted to say something. I was at a financial conference and they were showing all these questions and like the answers that they got from I just kept saying to everyone, I was like, can you believe they asked that question? And like nobody was as appalled that time. Like, people are just planning when they died. It was just like such a Western idea.
Yeah, like it thought it was easy. With you.
Yeah, just to see how much money you need to save.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I wanted to say that I think you're all very, very brave for showing up to talk about death because, like, it's sort of like that, you know, it's the way that we think about it is so many different ways that people have in their head this idea of death, you know, and some of it's about just financial planning, you know, or I love what you said, like, I just don't have time to think about death, you know? So it's like, I think it's amazing for you to show up here and talk about this thing, and we're here in the dark lives. Like, are you all sufficiently freaked out yet? Have you properly scared you? Because the reality is that you're already dying. So the process started the minute that you were born. So it's really brave of you to face the one of the most certain things that's going to happen to you. And yeah.
Can we put this in?
Oh, sure. Dun, 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 dun. Wait, we have we're here to spook you out a little bit. I promise.
Tell us if you know what this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you try and get in a little meditative person, see if you know what this is.
Yeah.
Heartbeat?
No.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, it could be different.
Yeah.
One side of it.
Sounds like a metronome.
Good. It is a metronome. What does it signify?
Every second?
No.
Every time. Oh, is it? You're right. Yeah. Someone died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On this planet, every time you hear that sound, someone's just died. That's someone's mom, someone's sister, someone's brother. Like, it's a real thing. We are talking conceptually about death and dying, but somebody's loved one just died. just died. So it's one side of the heartbeat of this planet, because the other side heartbeat is a little faster, and some human is being born. We're not adding animals or insects to this beat, because if we did, it would be a continuum. It would be a zzz or high-pitched sound. So I invite you just to think about the rhythm, because it will continue for the entirety of our workshop today. The reality, the sound will turn off in a second for you. But think about it. Yeah.
It's almost like witnessing it makes you feel a little responsible. Like just talking about it, we just killed off like 80 people.
Exactly. Yeah. But that sense of urgency now is coming because conceptually we've just thought about it as a reality and not just, oh, let's talk about this interesting thing. A collection of life just passed. Every work, like all the financial planning just left.
Now it's just paperwork.
Yeah, no, someone else's paperwork. Yeah.
I don't know, for me, I also think about like, does it have to be this way? I don't want this to happen to people. Like, I don't want it to happen to me, and I don't want it to happen to all these people that it's happening to. I have this sense of like, I want to do something, but I don't really know what the immediate action is to take.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Can we hold that? Because we've got a couple of steps, but we want to end up there. We want to go and talk about, is there some other thing we can do about it rather than feel like I'm in for a new experience? Actually, the Buddhists say there's 3 ways to approach death and dying. So jumping in from this, yeah. One is like a caged animal, where you don't know what the hell is going on, and you're frightened because you're caught in a net or a cage, and you're just, it's arrived and you hadn't thought about it, you're not planned for it, so you feel like a caged animal and you're enraged in fear, kicking and screaming. That's one way that beings engage with this transition of death. The other one, they say, it's a peasant. The way of engaging with death is like a peasant, where you're just used to doing your thing in the field. You do what you have to do to put the seeds in there, to let them come up, and you do the work. And it's night, so you go to sleep, and it's raining, so you can't go out. And so you are at the whim of a cycle and you're not in control of it. You're just engaging according to that cycle. And I don't remember the name of the third one, but the third one is understanding that cycle. You can engineer your response to it, engage with it, see what forces brought it about. And when you meet it with joy and wisdom. So it's used to transform like an alchemical elixir into something completely other than if it was unexamined or if you were sort of unprepared. Yeah, and that's when we get to talk about that, Rachel. We get to talk about, is it possible to meet this thing, because you're meeting it in the third of those 3 ways. But back to Sarah, that we are there already.
Yeah.
We're going fast.
We're going for it. Yeah, so just some other things for you to be aware of, in this process that you're already taking. It's already happening to you. We're losing 2,000 brain cells a day. They're not coming back. There is over 150,000 people that die every single day. Okay? And then even in our time together in this evening, there's going to be 12,000 people who die. That's like a third of the East Village. Just get rid of them. They're gone. And what you hear here is 1.8 per second. Okay? So from there, we do have a couple more things to scare you, but I promise we're going to end on like how you use this. I wanted to move in the video.
Yeah, I want to show another video.
pass it over to a nice video and then a really blessed.
The Western way of thinking about it is very material. It's very much like, how much did you save? Did you do the necessary things? And the internal process isn't really thought about too much. It's left up to individuals, or we go and have rituals about it, and they're sort of hollow. It has been my experience. Yeah, I buried my dad. We had to have an open casket because he was living in Argentina, and that's what you do. I'm like, well, but why? It's like, we have to. Well, why? It's just what we do. We're Catholic. Oh, okay. So then my dad is sitting above, or the body of my dad is sitting above, before he became this. And then people had to wait 24 hours. But nobody could tell me why. Nobody could say, what's the point of it, other than it's just our custom. It's like, let's make a cup of tea. And there's some things we should know about what happens to the physical part of us, for the body part of us. So we are aware of, I just witnessed this with my mum, and it was very interesting. The Eastern perspective also has a series of steps that the body goes through and the mind goes through. In the West, we tend to say, we just know what the body does, and we have no clue what the mind does, and we just leave that up to ritual. Yeah, so check this out. Sorry that the video again is a little.
When someone dies, their body goes through many stages of decomposition. The fresh stage begins immediately after the heart stops beating. The skin turns purple, and the muscles begin to stiffen in a process called rigor mortis. In the bloat stage, gases build up in the body, causing the abdomen to expand. As the pressure increases, bodily fluids and gases push out in the orifice. In the active decay stage, maggots feed on the flesh and the largest amount of biomass is lost. Finally, in the advanced stage, the body will continue to break down until only dry remains are left. While the stages of decomposition are the same for all humans, the speed depends on many factors, like temperature, environment, and cause of death.
Warm weather will cause the body to break down more quickly. Cold weather will slow it down a great deal.
Good on you. Congratulations. I just thought that was bizarre. It's like, yes, we know that if hot things touch the body, it will go faster, and if it's cold, it will stay longer. That's why we have fridges. It just blew my mind. I was looking to share with you, like, oh, what do we know? And there's not much we know. We study the physics of dying, but we have zero evidence-based or testable processes to see what happens to consciousness or to the mind. Yeah. So in the East, they've been doing that for 2,000 years, going at each time somebody dies, they check, meditate upon, analyze with logic, and see what could happen. And there are stories. So we're going to ask you permission now. Here comes the permission asking. Yeah. Can we go a little deeper with you? Can we give you a kind of experience? We're safe, we're in a room, but we want to give you a little experience to see how is really your relationship with death and dying. Can we do that with you? Are you sure? Then we have a little exercise for you. Yeah. We're going to ask you to pick an envelope. Yeah, and we're going to do a little workshop. Pick the one, pass them all, and there is something special in there. There's a picture of somebody who's dead inside each one of those. They're no longer here. Their body is no longer here. Their minds could have come back. Most of them are from New York. Some of them are not from the New York area. See who you found. Well, they're all different pictures of people who have actually passed away. And then there's your obituary to come. We're going to invite you to do a couple of things. First of all, connect with that being. They're in the afterlife right now. Maybe they met you for a reason. If you got two pictures, there were some people that were difficult to identify, so we think they're two similar pictures. See what you feel when you connect with them. They were just like you. they had a life, they drank, they slept. Can you see it okay?
Did you say there was an obituary?
No, and then the piece of paper is the obituary, which we're going to ask you to write as a workshop. You're on. Yeah? You just have to fill in the blanks. And that's not all, that's just the easy part. Okay, so I'm going to now ask you, do you need lights?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's put the lights up a little bit, and then we're going to give you, this is what you need to do. Actually, we're going to ask you, after you write the obituary, we're going to ask you to break into teams of 2. And I'm going to ask you, do you want to invite someone to choose the team for you? You want to leave it to chance, or do you want to choose yourselves? Chance. Anyone else? Chance?
Yeah.
Chance? Cool. So then chance may it be. So I'm going to, I'm going to call you 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah? Find a 1 or find a 2, and that will be your partner. Does that make sense? Find anyone that's a 1 or anyone that's a 2. If you're a 2, find someone that's a 2. If you're a 1, find someone that's a 1. Cool? But don't do that straight away. What we're going to ask you is we're going to put a little music on, and we're going to give you a few minutes to actually answer those questions. Fill out your death certificate, just the 3 minutes. And then we'll do the next part. Yeah?
Can you do the numbers again? Because I wasn't looking.
Sure. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Good. So the 1s find a 1, the 2s find a 2. Once you're ready.
And are we done today?
You're going to die today. Keep it. It's a gift to you.
So I'm filling this out with my information.
With your information, yeah, assuming it's you. We'll give you a couple of minutes. Take your time and see if you can be as honest as possible, especially the questions at the bottom. They're really important. Yeah. What do you think you're going to die of? If you die tonight. Sorry, that was the big deal. If you die tonight, sorry, I forgot. If you never got home tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's no chance to change anything. Tonight's the night, it's finished. So write down whatever you can at the bottom half that reflects your life to this point. Make sure it's legible, please. Sorry to tell you late.
I'm trying.
Good, just try.
Oh. You wrote it down.
Oh, you did?
No. Looks like a few people are starting to wrap up, so a couple more minutes.
If you're ready, if you want to find a partner that's also ready, yeah. This was the one elevator pitch about your life. Yeah, it's like you'll be remembered for being not funny in class or something. You know, I don't know.
If you look around and you see some people are done, you can.
I'm gonna need a couple of weeks.
It's tonight, my friend.
It's just happening right now. So you found a partner? Great. If you found a partner, we're going to ask you to get a yoga mat and just one for each, just one, and lay it down like you're going to go into Shavasana.
Just one.
Just one per two people.
One per pair.
Yeah.
And find a spot you guys can start to move into.
Yeah, find a spot somewhere. Find your team member.
Is there a two who's done?
Someone looking for a two? Stephen and Heather. Just find a little corner you can Shavasana. Try. That's the deal. The exercises, do your best. Cool. Cool.
And then you'll need also with your mat, your blanket.
So you're looking for?
No, I have a partner.
Who's your partner?
There you go.
No?
No.
Find a partner.
No.
Do we both need a blanket?
No, just one blanket, one blanket, one mat.
One mat, yeah.
You're going to create a new world.
Yeah. You might want to check your make sure you're each other's handwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What number are you? 2?
I'm at
two. You have a partner? Okay.
Oh, wait.
Is there an equal partner?
Yeah, so go with the numbers.
Well, if you didn't go with your number, it's okay. Just find a partner.
Who doesn't have a partner? Paul.
I don't have any.
Oh, Paul. Okay, let's be partners. I'm gonna use the restroom first.
Maybe help you with writing something.
Paul, do you want to look at my So you can begin to decide on who's going to lay down first. It looks like a few people are ready. One of you is going to lay down on the mat. All right?
So this is what's going to happen. Can we just get your attention for a sec? One of you is going to lay down on the mat. The person who's laying down on the mat, their obituary is going to be read to them by the person not laying down on the mat. So the person on the mat will be silent.
You're swapping obituaries, okay?
Yeah. And then you're going to take your time and read that person's last, the comments about them on their last day of life. They're going, Supriya was born on, she passed away doing, yeah, and we want you sort of to say it to each other quietly, slowly paced, and once you're finished, just to sit there for a few minutes, like 7 minutes in silence. Does that make sense? Then we'll ring a bell, because we'll see who's finished, and you'll swap. The other person will lay down, and the person who was previously laying down will read your obituary to you. And then when you finish, silence for about 7 minutes. We want you to feel, we saw what happens to the body. Imagine that that just happened to you, but your mind continues and you're hearing this from far away. Yeah? And it's just an experience to see what comes up for you, what your relationship, your real relationship with death, as real as we can make it. If you are comfortable, we suggest that we put the blanket over their face. Yeah, the person laying down has to feel comfortable. Only when it starts. Yeah, only when it starts. If you really want to make it. And so if you're reading it, maybe you get down near their ear and read it to them because there'll be lots of voices. Make sense?
You're dead.
Cool. So when you're ready,
is everyone clear?
do you need a little toilet break or anything like that before we start? Hurry then.
I didn't know.
Can we read like October 23rd?
Yeah, exactly. Make it dramatic. Make it like
On October 23rd.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like yeah. After leaving the 3 jewels. Yeah. Paul, are you good?
No.
Do you need help?
I can come over here and help. What's up?
I have nothing to write.
You have nothing
Are we
to
ready?
write? Okay.
They're not yet. We're going to wait for everyone else. Yeah. So, and when Rachel comes in, we'll do the. Actually, we won't do the light so you can read. I just want Paul to be ready too. Yeah.
I'm gonna clean my nose a little bit.
Yeah. So take a time now to read, practice before you go in. And thank you for playing. Thank you for being courageous. Did you slow down? Thank you, Paul, for playing. So Adam, just take your time to review what you're going to read. Try and make it dramatic, like on this night after she left 3 jewels. Good. Really think about the words you're saying, the words you're hearing. No, people have to read. Yeah. Well, she's going to go with Paul. So get ready to start. Are we missing anyone? So get ready to start. We'll ding the bell and then you will know when to start. If you're laying down, make sure you're comfortable. You're not going to move for a couple of minutes, like 10 minutes or something. Okay. Enjoy.
Can we read the numbers?
No, just read, just voice it, like, on such a day, such and such a person. Make use of the information in the story. Come on, please try to be serious.
Absolutely loving everyone selflessly forever.
And when you finish, stay in silence. When you hear the bell, it would be time to swap. Either do it gently. When you hear the bell, it would be time to start. Just take a moment to familiarize yourself with the words, how you'll read the story. Read it as if it's really the last time they'll hear these words about themselves. And you hear the bell just gently come back out into the circle. Thanks for playing. So just find any seat on the circle, so long as you're sitting. We're going to do another little exercise after we chat.
Yeah, we're going to be moving again, so don't get too attached.
Sit wherever.
Yeah, wherever. All right, so just in the interest of time, I want to hear how that was for you, but I'm gonna sort of limit it to just one word or a couple of words of what that experience was for you. And we'll do it popcorn style. I'm not gonna make everyone say it, but if someone wanted to share in just a couple of words, what was that experience? Write an obituary and lay there and hear it read to you.
I found it kind of comforting in a way.
Comforting.
Why? It was strange. Like I tried to imagine that it's actually dead.
Good.
And some of the things I had to say to myself weren't exactly most positive or like happy things. But I still felt like I gave it the best cut.
That's awesome. No, that's good. Cool. Anyone else? No one else. Please.
Just felt like plain truth. It's what was read to me.
And it's just what it was. Okay.
Cool. I think it would have been much different if somebody else wrote it.
Read it. Wrote it.
Wrote it.
Wrote it for you.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Because what I think of myself is probably not what most others.
That's interesting. That's really cool.
I thought that too. And in the process of writing it, I like my regret for any time I've been unkind to someone or like anything that I'm working on, like that I see as like something I want to change about myself. My regret for that deepened. So like any like argument I've ever had or any time I've been like not unkind to someone, it just the power of it like intensified. Yeah. So I wanted to change it.
Yeah. It's interesting you said intensified because for me at least the regret, it became this thing where I was like, oh, why am I letting this be a regret even? Like it almost lost some of its stickiness where I was like, it doesn't hurt that way anymore. I'm like, I'm just gonna do something about it. But
but you're dead.
Yeah, well, but the experience where we were reading the obituary for someone else was weird because I felt so far away from her mind. Like there was points where I was feeling like I was like, I hope these things that I didn't realize she felt die from her mind, like now. But it felt like I just couldn't. It felt like you're so far away from them in their mind, and I had no idea what was going through their mind at that time. Like it was an interesting position to be in.
Interesting. We didn't do the exercise. We wanted to create a platform where you could have all these experiences about, well, what if that was true? What if someone else wrote it for me? Would they say something different? That came up for us. The regret stuff came up for us. I didn't think about the kind of release or matter-of-factness, but I wonder if, like my mum had that attitude until she was certain she was going to die. And even though she was certain she was going to die within 5 days, she still didn't know when. And everything became a when. That pose, the thing. Is it, oh, is it now? Or is it when I vomit next? Or is it when I'm falling asleep? And it's like, even though she knew she had a week. Yeah. And so I wonder if that would shift if we really sort of talked ourselves up into thinking it's true. Anyone else want more?
I actually felt like the regret, if I said something I had to do with someone else, I felt like I regretted actually writing that because I felt like it left them like, when people die, I think we have a tendency to say like, oh, there was great things and they were the best, and like that wasn't really, it's not really fair to make the regret. It like puts it on the person that's left, I felt like, and that bothered me.
Good. We wanted it to bother you because we knew nobody would know you that well or say, you know, they regretted this. We wanted you to think about, is there anything I've got undone so you could have that experience of going, I can fix it, I can do something, because you're still alive.
I feel like ready to die.
Wow. Interesting.
But I didn't feel ready for Jonas to die, and I felt like I wanted to come back to life so I could spend more time with him.
That's very nice. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. That's really cool. So the point here is, you're not dead. We're in a room. You don't know how much time you got left, but you've got time. It's probably not tonight, but we're not sure. But it's probably not, but we're not sure. So in that time, we should use that for something. But before we go there, I want to just get a couple of your thoughts about what you think happens after. What do you think? Oh, sorry, this is what it's better. Sorry.
The 14th Dalai Lama now resides here in Dharamsala, India. He was born in 1935 and was recognized 5 years later as the incarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. As a young boy, he could recognize people who were familiar to his predecessor and select objects which he had used. After his formal recognition, he was rigorously trained and assumed full spiritual and temporal authority as leader of the Tibetan state in 1950, at the age of 15.
If you accept, if you believe, if you accept the system, life, continuation of life, then that's just is one location. Life is a change when your clothes become old, and then the old cloth, throw it, and then the new nice is cloth. Similarly, this old body cannot function properly. Then change. The new body, more energetic, more fresh body.
I really like that. I really like the way he expresses it, but because it feels right? It's like something broke, something tired, and we go get a new one, right? But the implications are big. Can you choose the next life? Can you choose your next body? You know, like you said, you go into the ocean and something pops up. Is that what happens? Something we believe, even in the uncertainty, we hold on to something, you know. What do you think? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sounds good.
It sounds good. So do you think you choose it? Because this is, I think, where the rubber meets the road. My mum passed away in a host-like, uncontrollable mind that sometimes was afraid, sometimes was not. She never thought she was going to be that way. Her regret became, day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was fearless. I thought that became her thing. That became the grasping. And in that attachment, she created some disturbance in that lake, in that mind, in that ocean. And it caused and affected through, so we don't have time to go into it in detail, but we have classes on it, books upon books on it from the Tibetan and Buddhist traditions. That mind must experience the result of all those mental moments, mental causes. Yeah? So every time we think something, we say something, we do something, and our mind experiences it, the flavor behind it leaves an imprint in our consciousness, and our consciousness must experience its results. That's the theory. So although he was saying simply, oh, you change your mood. You do, but you have to go to the tailor that you've been paying all your life. You can't go to another one. You have to go to the tailor that you've been supporting and they've been sewing your new clothes through the entirety of this life. And that's a huge implication because the emphasis is not so much on death, but life. Because the possibility, if that's true, and that's a huge if, right, from this philosophy, if it's true that the new clothes we put on come from everything our mind intended through our actions of body, speech, and mind in this life, if as we're living today, someone's weaving your new clothes, and at that moment, there are, and we won't have time, Steve, I want to talk about the 8 dissolution practice of death and this process, then they've documented it to the nth degree, what consciousness does. And then as it finds itself looking for an identity, because we're so used to being incarnate or me, at some point that becomes too crazy and it just grabs onto the clothes we made. So I want to show you one more clip so you get that flavor, and then we're going to do an exercise on the energy which should be left behind going, wow, I can fill my mind, I can imprint my consciousness with the kind of clothes I want, rather than being like either the trapped animal or the, what was the second one? The peasant, right? You can design the next experience you have. And that has infinite possibilities. Yeah. So I want to show you one more clip about attachment, because the attachment to my mother's attachment was, I thought I was not attached. That was her attachment. I thought I had this. I was like this. Now I'm not. Disturbance, disturbance, disturbance. And that is weaving clothes. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is what they say in the Tibetan Buddha.
Listen carefully, so you can still see your family. They no longer know that you are with them. Though still you can go anywhere you wish, you cannot slow down. You are simply being driven on the winds of hope and fear, just as a dead leaf is carried on a gale. Still unable to recognize his own nature, his anger, lust, and confusion become ever more intense, ever more solid. They at last appear to him as entire realms where he may stop and dwell. Now all your desperate thoughts pursue you as shadows, beasts, and armies of demons. You will move about, backwards and forward, towards anything that appears. The image of your former body is becoming faint, and the image of your future body is becoming clear. Any birth seems better than your current pain. Sariksona, this will be your last chance. Let your grasping mind dissolve completely. Whether you are born as a god or a human or an animal, whether you are a hungry ghost, a jealous god, or a hell being, you will again suffer the inescapable torments of living and dying.
So that is heavy. Yeah. Yeah, so the imprints that we've collected in our mind, because nobody else can see in your mind except you. You know when you're being nice to someone or pretending to be nice to someone or mean harm to someone or disguising it as something else. You know your thoughts, you know, you are recording them. They are in you. That's the weaving of the new clothes. And at the separation of body and mind, the mind hasn't got this to stick you here anymore. It will travel like a dead leaf on a gale, I think they said, right? So right now you can imagine your bed at home. Imagine not being embodied, you'd be at your bed at home now. And if you want to think of Africa, you'd be there now too. And you can only think of the stuff you put in your mind. And they will come up like a hose. Unless you've practiced something along the way, the weaving, the tailoring of the future. And it can be outside the cycle of life and death. That's what it is. There is something this consciousness can experience that isn't caught up with attachment through the cycles of life. And that is liberation. That's literally what it means. You are liberated from being at the whim of all the stuff you put in your consciousness unwillingly through this illusion, thinking if I'm terrible to you, I'm going to be happy. I just was terrible to me 10 times over. Whether he experienced my terribleness as good or bad, because he could, or I could be mean to someone and they could laugh it off, or I could be mean to someone and they could be disturbed. But if I meant harm, I took harm. And that is the huge revelation in the scepter. And you can be free from having to go through the cycles of pain. So the cool thing is we have a second chance. We didn't die tonight, right? And that second chance, we're going to do a little experiment together. Can we do one more? You up for doing one more? Yeah, if you say no, that was cool, but if you say yes, let's go and use the precious time we have right now to do the opposite. We're going to set you up with the same team, yeah? You're going to think for a few minutes and write down on this sheet of paper your perfect life, the thing you really want to achieve before that moment comes. And then we're going to put you in actually we don't have to put you in the inner or outer circle. You can just be next to each other. And then we're going to do a deep listening exercise, similar to what we did in the meditation teacher training. We're going to, once you've written down your perfect life, you're going to just let your mind flow and tell it like a story to the person listening. If you're listening, you don't have to respond. Don't open your eyes. You're just there to feel the joy and the happiness that it would be to imagine that this person in front of you has a fulfilled life and has done things with their lives that doesn't create a bad tailoring job in the future. Does that sound okay? And then we'll ring the bell and you swap. We do it again. So the person speaking, you just write down some dot points of that perfect life that you imagine you could do, both in your mind and your body. And in what is it that you can imagine you can achieve in the time you've got left, assuming you've got time left. And then just tell it to the other person, saying, I see myself doing this. When I had a baby, she was a girl, and I named her blah. And I taught her how to be blah, you know, etc., etc., etc. Don't call her blah. Yeah. So let's play. Let's play. Get your team member, you get 3 minutes to write down some dot points of your perfect life, and then just sit in front of each other, and one person, and you can both have your eyes closed and just whisper a perfect life when we ring the bell. No, just tell them, just say, me, Rachel, first person. Yeah, first person.
No.
No.
What you want to say. Just to think about it and then you're.
Stephen, imagine your perfect life. Before you die, you didn't die tonight.
Yeah.
You've got X number of hours left, or days left.
What would you do?
What were some of the things you want to achieve in that life and imagine you have?
Everything you've ever wanted to do.
Just write it down. And just as a prompt, because then you're just going to talk to her. You're not going to read them. You're going to just use them as a prompt to say, oh, that's right, and this and that. Yeah.
That's wrong.
Just a minute left to wrap up and think. Don't read it to the other person. Just use it as a prompt to just free flow telling them the story of a perfect life. Do you need an example? Do you need us to do it for you so you can see how it goes? Or you're good?
Good.
You good? Okay, so let's begin. When the bell
You do want to turn and face your partner.
Yeah,
So you're going to be looking at each other, and then the person, decide on who's going to talk first. And the person who's doing the talking is, you're going to go for the, what did you decide?
we'll do 5 minutes each.
5 minutes straight?
Yeah.
And then if you're the person listening, your job is to do as little as possible. Just look at them and be present with them.
Don't look at them. Eyes closed.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, eyes closed for both of you, unless you need to peek at your piece of paper.
Wait, 5 minutes per person?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we should talk for 5 minutes. Decide who's talking. Pick who's going to talk first.
Like, I'm gonna read mine.
Don't read it. Use it as a prompt and just tell her what you wrote.
Yeah.
For example, I'll give you an example. So her and I are doing it. I've got my prompt. Yeah, Hector has seen emptiness directly, bought out a second house, married Stephen, had 3 babies. Yeah, example. Sorry. He's got children. You're going to be left with the children. So then I know I wrote that, right? So I'm going to just try and be in the zone and go, what I've achieved with my life was amazing. I can't believe I met Stephen. I fell in love with him the moment I saw him, but I never thought that I'd be able to be with him to the end of my life. And then we did so many great things together. Like we built the 3 jewels. We created a group of people who are studying hard to navigate this life in a perfect way. We adopted 3 kids from Nepal because of all our trips over there. I never thought I'd love that, but, you know, and I just talk, like, there's no right answer, just let it flow, and the person listening should feel the emotion, the happiness for the other person. That's all you gotta do. And then when the bell goes, you swap.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, what is it?
Is it just Is it important to speak like from the past, like you spoke, like looking back into?
Yeah. I think to me that helps because then you can say I have achieved it. Yeah. So talk about it as if you've already done it. So I think that's the sub point number 2. Yes, if you've achieved it, explain your dream life as if it's already happened.
So are we dying? We're dead.
You could be die the next moment after you say these words. You're gonna die.
But you've already done all of it.
Yeah, you've done all your life. It's not about death, it's about life.
Yeah.
No, just talk to each other. Yeah. Cool? Any more questions? So when the bell goes, you can start. Get settled mentally. You good? Not ready yet. When the bell goes, just check your motivation and really try and connect and make the exercise function for you and the other person.
Something like every time I try it, kind of go far just the way
Just 1 minute.
It's been remarkable. I never wanted to be there. I just wanted to make sure that keep generating and I hope it continues on, even if people come to know and that
when you hear the bell ready to swap.
I was confused whether to have this happen.
It's okay, just talk until the bell. Sorry.
No, he said he's talking about it.
Yeah. So let's settle in for the next round. Let's settle in for the next round. And you can go. So half a minute for the bell. And with your smiles, let's bring our awareness to the circle again when you're ready. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, how did it go?
Yeah.
Tell us more.
What was something you heard that was really beautiful or really inspiring?
She finally learned Spanish.
That's awesome.
I can teach you Spanish. Me too.
She learned Spanish, someone else.
I was able to completely defeat my math numeracy.
Yay! That's awesome. That's really cool. Did you actually like imagine it as if it was really?
No,
Yeah.
I heard that.
Oh, you heard that? Okay. Cool. Cool. Did it feel like?
Yeah, it did feel a little bit like I feel like I'm in a different space now.
Good.
After this work.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. It's possible. It's
possible to, right?
Completely. We are changing things.
Yeah.
And the causes of those changes we are making all the time. So our future selves are not the same as they were before. They are changing based on what we do. So totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I love hearing Paul's.
Nice.
So Paul's perfect world was like having a bunch of musicians travel into people's hearts through music. And I just had this beautiful vision of
like almost like a huge flock of birds in the sky, and how the tides and the winds move, and just that wind of like beauty and wisdom and love, and just the natural movement of those energies, just like washing over the planet. And you know, it's Paul's perfect world to gather that together, and then.
Oh, that's sweet. That's awesome.
That's
Very
so
nice.
beautiful. What I love about that is that when you study this idea of karma and emptiness, of cause and effect, the way that you create your perfect world is to help others get a perfect world and to be excited and happy and joyful for their perfect world. So, I can see on your faces, you're bright, you're smiling, you look so happy. And there's something about sharing your perfect world, but then also getting really excited and rejoicing in someone else's perfect world. That together is what will be how you can use this life to make it as meaningful and as powerful as you want. And it will set you up for that moment of death when you make that transition. Whatever will come after, hopefully it will be that perfect world. So I love that you talked about rejoicing in what other people's ideal life is.
Yeah, that's really
Anybody else?
It was really interesting because when I read his obituary, I just had this extreme sadness of such a beautiful life lost. And then when I heard his perfect life, it was like this amazing life that took all of your gifts and all of your love and passion and made it happen. And it was
It's
just
so
amazing.
That's really
to
sweet.
flip that
Yeah.
from being sad to this wonderful life.
How awesome. Very nice. Thank you. Yeah.
It was really nice to sit and hear Stephen, that it was like the whole time, I like immediately got immersed in his world, and I was like, oh, the sun is shining all the time. It was really great, and I realized that like I was smiling really hard, because I was like, yeah, get that, like come on, get that.
Nice.
And it's gonna be so great when it does, and it was just really nice how easy that is to be able to like witness and hear someone's joy and then go, yeah, like just get it.
Yeah. So cool. Did you have the babies? Did you have the 3 babies?
They came in shape of monkeys.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? What you guys do?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Rosie just said something that was so profound and beautiful when she said, the relationship between grandparent and grandchild is like really where you experience the most unconditional love, or the truest, and it just gave me this experience, and she spoke into it, that gave me the image of when you have a child and you love them, but you go through the trials of what's between mother and daughter, mother and son, father, and then when you go through that, and they produce a child, and that relation, and like, you know, I'm thinking of my grandmother, and for me, I want to be a father, not knowing if I will, and the work it takes to get there, and then another gen who was like, I mean, it's wow.
That's amazing.
So much respect for anybody who becomes a grandparent, you know, the road that it takes to get there, and I just find it so true. I'm just so moved that you shared that.
Wow, cool.
I thought, like, when Sophia was talking, I wanted to be like, you're doing that. Like, you're already doing all that. And it was really cool. And I think that maybe what we both had in common was, I wanted to, like, talk, but I was supposed to. But I think one of the things that we both had in common is we didn't have a lot of specificity to our futures, but we both had this kind of abstract way of seeing how it was going to happen. And I don't think mine really made sense, and maybe you don't think it made sense, but like I felt the feeling that you had about it, so it did make sense. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like there was all this
it was going to be for you, like what that experience would be for Lauren, but there was so much certainty about how she wanted to make other people feel or what she wanted. You know what I mean? Like that was the certainty, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to live here and then do it. There was an openness there, and it was amazing. Actually, I forgot about the fact that I do this sometimes, but I haven't recently, but I tried it for a week where I really did wake up and was like, oh, I'm gonna die at 6 p.m. today. Like, what would I do? You know, you like hear that, like, if you were to die right now, what would you do? And the first few days, it just made me upset because I was like, oh, I'm not doing the right things. I'm not around the right people. And I was like, oh, I need to quit my job. I need to move. I need to do all this. But it's like the state of mind doesn't really like, because I feel like I don't know. After a few days of doing it, I realized I had the sense that even if I arranged all the perfect things, that would probably get boring the next day I tried to do it. So it was beautiful to hear Lauren like touch on that. Hers was she's like traveling the world, like that's how she died. And so it didn't matter where she was or what she was doing, but it was why. And so that was really came through.
Cool. It's so nice to hear it from us. Ladies, you giggled a lot at the back there. Is it Kelly?
Yes, and Anya.
And Anya.
We've been friends for 20 years. So
Oh, okay, so you know each other's lives.
Situation for us probably than for other people, but it was really sweet to just envision our dreams coming true, you know, to just hold the space.
We hear each other grow a lot too.
Yeah.
So hearing a lot of it is like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
But also it's like I see that, I've seen that happening over the years, and it's amazing to know. It's amazing to know a person.
Yeah.
And to see, you know, to go through adulthood together and see the change, to see the life unfolding, and to be able to chart, like, yeah, it's happening.
That's sweet. Yeah, I heard you giggle. I'm like, oh, I want to know what's going on over there. Someone else want to share? Because what we're going to ask you is to think about what, out of the conversations you just heard, the deep listening you just did, what are you going to practice when you leave the room today? What is it? What's going to be the theme? Because we can practice being angry all the time. We can practice being bored all the time. We can practice Dharma, being Buddhist. You know, like we're just practicing something all the time.
You can practice being afraid of your death the whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
Set you up.
So we'd love to just leave you with the thought, what would you practice? Because what you practice, you'll become. And all we covered tonight from the Tibetan Buddhist worldview is that death is certain. You guys all knew that from the very beginning. But the time of it is uncertain. It's like you never know. Which leaves you thinking that something remains, like something follows, and it's definitely not all your stuff. Like it's not the clothes, and it's not the gold, and it's not the apartment or the lease, you know. But whatever remains are these imprints. The idea is these imprints we leave in our own minds as we interact with others. So this last exercise, I think you said it beautifully, being happy that other people get what they want, which is what I heard from all of you. Like, you're like, oh, it's so nice to see 20 years of life developing. That is leaving an imprint in your own mind, which must have a result equal to the seed you just planted, which is abundance and joy and all the stuff that you wish for her is coming your way. And whatever you rejoice about him is coming your way. Whatever you rejoice about Paul is coming your way. You know, which is stunning.
When you talk about practicing all the time, a lot of it is unintentional practice that you
correct.
You have like fear of death or something you have in your mind or in your heart. You don't realize how you strengthen that practice just by having it unintentionally or not unintentionally, but unconsciously part of your being. So the practice is to realize that you do these things and kind of replace that with intentional practice.
Yeah. We are all practicing something unconsciously. And then we have the two ways of meeting death, the first two ways of meeting death. The more unconscious we are about what we are practicing, like the first thoughts that pop into your mind when you wake up, you know, or the thoughts you have when you're strolling through Instagram. Or when you're unhappy that somebody got everything they wanted, a colleague or whatever, and you're sitting there going, God, they don't deserve it. You know, that I wish they didn't get that. It's stupid. Especially if you're going to live the consequences of that thought. So,
yeah, I would just wanted to say before we wrap up, as we wrap up, this has been awesome, you guys. Like, I love you so much. It was so nice to hear a little bit of your practice and get a taste of your mind. And I think you're all amazing for showing up and confronting this thing called death. Like I said, it's not normal in society to sit there and be like, well, I'm going to lay on the ground and pretend like I'm dying and think about all of my regrets, and then I'm going to imagine the perfect life. So it's a really great thing. It's so lovely to see your smile. And I hope that you will take away a tool that will set up your life the way that you want to have it, because it really is possible. So,
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Have an awesome evening. Yeah, enjoy the rest of Halloween. You can keep the strangers that you met in the envelope. You can keep your obituaries. If you want, we can sign your pretend death certificates. No problem. I just need a pen. I just need a pen. This is me. You broke